honestly, not to beat a dead horse here, but I think the way that we respect each other, the way we respect the guests, the way we respect the ingredients, it's like fill in the blank after the word respect. And we really try to like live that mantra. And, to be candid, when I told my partners that I wanted to name it Respect, they were worried. They were like, well, that puts a lot of pressure on us, don't you think? And I was like, you're goddamn right it does.
That's the whole point of language.
Yeah.
I love that.
This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro.
With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, chef owner of Peasant 1/5, Restaurant Marc Forgione, and also a partner at Kio, Chef Marc Forgione. My man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Feeling great, man. Monday morning.
Dude,
got a little chill in the air.
I know.
Nice bike ride over here.
I love. What kind of bike was that, by the way? I saw you roll in. I meant to ask before we got started.
It's a Royal Enfield.
What's the story behind it? Is that like a American bike or English, British?
It's an English bike. They make them in India.
Oh man.
I'm kind of like a vintage type guy, and like if you look at the bike, it like
Yeah, dude. I meant to compliment your bike earlier. And
Thank you.
It's a beautiful bike for sure, and I can't wait to dive into who you are, how you got to where you are today. Just in my 1 hour of research, I give myself before every episode. I know that you came up in a family of chefs. You're like a generational thing. I know that you're the youngest American Michelin star winner at 30 years old. Is that correct?
It was, and again, I don't know how the facts work out. Somebody told me one day that, and it wasn't the youngest chef. It was the youngest chef and owner.
Oh, got it.
So technically, I got the star for the work I did when I was 29 years old.
And you've surrounded yourself with some amazing chefs along the way. So I know there's going to be some gold in today's conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot wait to dive into it. But let's get that motivational, inspirational, ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Well, listen, I just named my hospitality group Respect Hospitality. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I think the word respect, not only in the hospitality industry, but just in life, if you act with respect towards whatever you may be doing, whether it's giving somebody some prosciutto and espresso,
it was delicious,
or opening the door for somebody, or, respecting the way you say hello to somebody, like it goes on and on and on and on. The word never doesn't make sense when you plug it into something. So
it's weird how we take certain words for granted. There's just certain words that are a common word, like respect is such a common word, but like I feel like it means different things to different people. So
sure. For
you, it's taking the time to like, what is like the definition of respect for you?
For me, again, it's just paying attention to and acknowledging, the moment of what you're doing when you're doing it, and again, it could be anything. For me, it's, I respect the moment of walking my son to school in the morning. You know what I mean? Yeah. When we wake up, respecting saying good morning, I love you.
Yeah. I feel like what I'm hearing, if I'm reading between the lines, it's the decency to be present and to see somebody is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, especially in today's world, the being present is
yeah, it's harder and harder to do.
It's the hardest time in the history of humanity to be present.
Why do you say that?
Well, just with all the things that are trying to get us away from, being present. You know what I mean? Like there are people's jobs that are literally to get you to be distracted on your phone.
And they're really good at it.
And
they're so good at it. Like beyond the point of our
That's a whole other podcast we can do.
Man, but you're hitting a chord with me, man. This is, if my listeners are going to go, oh God, here he goes again. No, you're hitting a really important thing. This is why I'm so hopeful for the restaurant industry, because it's one of the few, I think, industries that exist to force people away from those platforms and to be present.
Yeah.
And to sit across. There's a reason why I drive my ass across the country to sit across the table from somebody. It's just not the same to see somebody through a screen. Like there's so much that happens in person. I think that we took it for granted for so long, and there's a reason why people are so depressed and unhappy right now.
COVID kind of
I get that.
Put it into fifth gear. Like it was already heading there, and then
Yeah.
COVID was like, okay, we are going to teach everyone how to be attached to the screen and stay in your house.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I hope that we kind of wake up and start to realize what it means to be human again.
I think we will.
Yeah, I hope so, man. But where does it make sense to start sharing your story, man? Because you have a journey. You started young. Did you know young that this is what you wanted to do?
No. I think sometimes people get the wrong idea. Like, this is what I was going to do from the moment I was born, and I was, trained, from childhood. And it's probably the exact opposite. I don't think I ever once said when I was a kid, when they asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? I never said chef. And then even as I got older, I don't know. I always thought I was going to do something in music.
You got rock star vibes.
Yeah, I just listen. I always say the same thing. I'm a much better cook than I am a guitar player.
But
I think I always wanted to be in a band, and I tried a couple times. And like I said, to be honest, and I have no problem saying it. You know what I mean? It's just it's not like something I do as a profession. I now play at home and I enjoy it, and but when I tried to go for it, it just wasn't in the cards. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is like I didn't think I was going to be a chef. So what I started to do, the way that my parents kind of raised us, you know what I mean? Like once I was like old enough to make money or have a job, they wanted me to have a job, instead of them just giving me money. You know what I mean? So,
but both your parents were chefs. I think I
they met at culinary school.
Okay.
But my mother, she took care of us. My dad was in the restaurants, and my dad was, working a lot. He had us young. He was 24, I think, when I was born. So, the next 15 years were my 15 years of life.
Yeah.
He was, creating the American landscape for chefs. I mean, so he was working a lot.
Yeah. And your grandfather too, right? Was a
no,
chef?
No. He was just a good cook.
Okay. So it was just like a generation.
And my great grandmother was an amazing cook. And my grandfather is 100% Italian. So, and he was obviously the patriarch of the family. So like we kind of grew up with like the Italian, food was like
it's just
front and center. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
my dad's second generation Italian, and I get it, man.
Yeah,
like he wakes up and he's eating breakfast. His plate's not even clear, and he's like, "What's for dinner?"
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And family gatherings with just food everywhere. You know what I mean? Like everywhere. And so like we grew up that way. But I didn't have anything against being a chef. I just didn't want to be a chef. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then as I got into my, like I said, teenage years, my first real like job, I think I was, I was driving, so I must have been 17. And it was at this place called the Hofstra University Club, and I was like, it started as a busboy, and then I ended up becoming a bartender and a server, and, like kind of did that. And then right around that same time, same kind of thing, I wanted, money. And my dad was like, well, why don't you come and help in the restaurant? And I said, okay, cool. But, even at that age, like, I don't think I understood how important and how upscale my dad's restaurants were. You know what I mean? Like, just because when I was in it, it was just dad's restaurant. Right. Just like as if, I'm sure my son looks at me now, like, he just this dad's restaurant.
Yeah, that's their point of reference. That's normal.
It's not one of the best restaurants in the country. It's just dad's restaurant. You know what I mean? So,
and where was this?
It was on 32nd and Park.
Okay, so in Manhattan.
It was in Manhattan,
New York City.
And at the time, it was like one of the top 10 American restaurants like in the country. I mean,
that's awesome.
And he was very pivotal in being proud to be American. And you have to remember in his era, you couldn't be serious or taken seriously as a chef unless you were basically French. And him and a bunch of other people, Alice Waters and Dean Ferring and Paul Prudhomme and Bradley Ogden and Mark Miller, and these are all American chefs that like kind of carved the way for the next generation.
Right.
But again, so because of all that, he worked a lot. And when I started to work in the restaurant, again, I just thought it was dad's restaurant, but I didn't realize I was like, even just by osmosis, working with these young, talented chefs that were in that kitchen. I mean, now as I got older,
Yeah.
I would go work somewhere else, and I was like, holy shit, like
Right.
that was like, you guys do that? Like, well, we would never do that at an American place. You know what I mean? Like, and like we'll go back to the word respect, which I'm sure we're going to hear a lot over the next hour. The ingredients there were so pristine and thoughtful and wild and natural, and like everybody likes to bring up Noma these days. Like if you look at the stuff that was on the menu at an American place, like there was foraging and preserving going on in the mid 80s, never mind 10 years ago. But anyway, so I spent summers there, again, not realizing I was being trained the way I was being trained. Then I went to college, and every summer in between, I would work at, whether it was Above, which was an amazing experience with Chef Gazzuto and his wife, Vicky, with Gavin at the Grill Room, at an American place, like I said. And like, I think I realized one day at college, I took my sophomore year off. I went to California. I thought I was going to be like a surfer, lifeguard, like live in Baywatch kind of thing. Found out real quick that was not going to happen. Ran out of money. Was like essentially homeless, living on a beach.
That's the time to do it.
Yeah, and it was fun. I'm not, it was a lot of fun. We're going to desert raves and but we just my buddy and I, literally like ran out of money. We were like, well, okay, like we gotta go home.
I mean, I encourage people when they're young to go do that because you can go home.
Yeah,
like
we were literally my buddy and I, who now is very successful by the way. We were sleeping on a convertible couch in this like 3-bedroom house that we shared with 2 construction workers.
Dude, that's the dream. I'm trying to make that my life right
crazy.
now. I literally, yesterday morning, I moved out of my apartment and I'm committed to 100% on the road right now. This is my first interview of just living on the road.
Ah, cool, so man. Good
I respect that, man, what you're doing. I think there's something to be said. It's a cool lifestyle. But I did notice that you went to school for hotel and restaurant management.
That's where I was getting. So
okay.
So I didn't originally. I went to UMass.
What you originally
to play? I went to UMass Amherst to basically because I wanted to play lacrosse there. I played lacrosse in high school. And then that didn't work out. I think my first major was psychology, I think. I mean, I'm which is funny because not to jump way ahead, but when you become the chef owner of a couple restaurants, you essentially become a psychiatrist.
I was going to say, I've noticed for sure there's a correlation between people who focus on either sociology or psychology and understand people. That's a skill, man.
Oh yeah, no, I sit down at least 10 hours a week with somebody that needs to talk.
For sure.
Whatever. Anyway, so like I said, I majored in psychology. That didn't work out. I took the year off. And then I think when I came back, I was like a little bit of a hippie, so I majored in like forestry. And then I used to cook. And again, like I said, in between those summers and that year that I took off when I came back, I worked. That was my first time. I worked for like 7 or 8 months straight in a restaurant, which I'd never done before. And I always loved it from like day one. And I think
what did you love about it?
That's like something you can't teach to people.
Yeah.
I loved everything about it. I loved hanging out with the guys after. I loved scrubbing the kitchen at the end of the night. I loved, taking the cigarette break in between, lunch and dinner service. You know what I mean? I loved the hot, sweaty, yelling craziness. Like it was like being on a pirate ship.
Right.
You know
the culture of it all.
Yeah. It was awesome. And again, at the time I'm a 19, 20-year-old kid. Like I'm hanging out in New York City. Like, you know what I mean? Right. Like it was just like, this is
you don't know
awesome.
what you have sometimes until you get away.
Right.
I mean, I think it took getting away, getting a different perspective, getting into different kitchens to get that perspective. Because like you said, all you knew is what you knew. Yeah. And that was high standards from the very beginning. The thoughts that were going through my head are you're the average of the people you surround yourself. And I was also thinking of like outliers, like the 10,000 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And like you started young, but you started young at a very high level because you had, and I want to say privilege, but I think privilege gets a bad rep. I think privilege is a good thing. Like it's only bad if you don't recognize your privilege, and you don't do something with your privilege.
And that's what I preface this with. I think some people have this like, And again, I think it's hurt and probably does still hurt me a little bit with my reputation. Is people think that it was like this, like, you know,
Like
golden spoon,
Yeah.
like, you know, like childhood, like, no, like we were, you know, trust me, I'm not gonna like get into it, but like it was the exact opposite. Like
Right.
there was no like luxury or like
You're the
eating-
son of a restaurant owner.
yeah, like it was, you know. Anyway, but so here I am, you know, I do the thing, I go back to school, and it just so happened that the hotel restaurant management at UMass was like number 3 in the country after Cornell and the
Florence.
Culinary Institute.
Oh.
And there was a moment I used to cook for my buddies. They would give me like $5. I think we called it like $5 in a dream or something. You know what I mean? Like, and I would go to the grocery store, depending on how many people gave me $5. Like, let's just say I had $30 and it was 6 of us, and I would cook. Like, I don't know if you went to, you know, college, but you know, you don't eat well when you go away to school.
I actually went to school at Daniel Webster College. I only say that to you because it was right over the border in Nashua, New Hampshire. So
Okay,
I
so-
grew up in New Hampshire.
Yeah, so but you know, you get to school and like, you know, you're eating a lot of like fast food and, you know, da 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 da. So like to get a home cooked meal, and you know, we would like do it like in like
Yeah.
the best way we could. Like, you know, we would drink like $9 bottles of wine and like, you know, whatever, but we would like, you know, invite our girlfriends over and like, you know,
Yeah.
like light candles on the table. Like, you know, it was like we'd have fun with it, you know?
Got it. So,
And I'm
go ahead.
doing one of these like dinner parties, and I just had like this aha moment. I think I had like psych class the next day at like 9 a.m, and I'm like, I don't want to go to psych class. Like, I want to do this. And like,
Yeah.
it was almost like everything like was like,
Yeah.
you know, like, and I'm not saying at that moment I was like, I'm going to be a chef, but I was like, I clearly enjoy doing this. And, you know, at the time I was by far and away the best cook out of all my friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I think I'm pretty good at it.
Right.
Like, why run away just because it's what Dad does? Like, maybe I'll explore this. That was when I looked into the HRTA, enrolled in the HRTA. It's kind of a stupid, funny story, but I show up to the first day of like the cooking class at the HRTA.
So what's the TM? Restaurant? I'm assuming it's restaurant.
Hotel,
Management.
restaurant, and travel
Okay.
administration.
Got it.
I'm not really sure. But I show up to the first day of the cooking like class, and you know, I could tell the poor teacher doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. So at the end of the class, like I pull him aside and I'm like, look, bro, give me an A, and like I'll show up like 20 minutes before, and like I'll show you, you know, the
How to
right
do your
stuff
job.
to do. I mean, he was just a kid himself.
Yeah.
You know, he was like a TA, whatever they call it. Anyway, so graduated from HRTA, you know, got a degree. Again, the summers in between, always working at a restaurant. And then graduated school, 2000. And I do the whole backpacking through Europe thing, which was incredible. It was like before the Euro. So like, you know, you would like eat like kings in one country and then
Yeah.
be poor in another country. And like, it was just like, you know, and then when you found the countries that the dollar was good in, like you would stay there for a little longer than you should have. But it was also the first time I saw like European culture. And I think, you know, we talk about respect, like the Europeans have like such a respect for eating and food, and it doesn't need to be fancy. They just, you know, the way that they do it, you know what I mean? You walk into somebody's house, they pour you a glass of water and they put food on the table, and, you know, you sit down at a restaurant and, you know, whether you're wearing a t-shirt or a suit, you know what I mean? Like they treat you with the same, like it was like my first taste
Right.
of that European hospitality.
So earlier, when you were talking about respect, when I was trying to, you know, decipher and read between the lines, it was about seeing people and being present, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So through that filter, when you're talking about how they were doing food there, was it about the food or was it about how they were feeding people?
Both, everything. You know, the way that they would, you know, like I said, just make eye contact with you when you sat down, you know, like sometimes in a nice restaurant, you know, you'll get like judged because maybe you're not dressed the way that, like in the places we were going to in Europe, like it was just hospitality. And it wasn't because they were doing it so that they would be busy. They did it because they enjoy it. I just got back from Italy. Like nothing's changed. It's the same, I always joke it's because they've been doing it for a lot longer than us, so like they get it.
Well, I mean, like I think American culture, Western culture is so driven by consumerism about profitability,
money.
How much volume, how much throughput, how many seats in that restaurant, and at the end of the day, you got to pay your bills. I get that you have to give security to your people and make sure they have like insurance and all this stuff. And that all costs money, but you can't do that stuff at the expense of losing sight of what it's all about.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough. Trust me, I'm in it. It's tough.
It's a hard balance.
Yeah, it's a hard balance.
Well, I was curious. Earlier, you were talking about how like that in-home experience that you had with your friends, where you went out and you pulled your resources and you'd cook a meal and invite your friends over, your girlfriends over, and that was kind of your aha moment. What about the people that like warn against that? Like, if you love cooking for friends and family, like the restaurant industry is not for you because it's not the same. Like, where do you fall on that line? I'm curious.
No, well, I mean, listen, I give that advice all the time, but that's more for like if you're an 18-year-old kid and you love cooking for your friends and family, like go for it.
Right.
If you're, and again, I don't want to like, say anything about like age, like whatever, but I mean, like if you love cooking as a hobby and you already have a career, like stick with your career and keep the cooking a hobby because, it's especially in today's world. It looks so glamorous to be a chef, but
that's another issue with the social media.
Like, we come on, it is
paint this picture of reality that's so far from reality.
Don't get me wrong. I am like one of the very lucky people in this world that worked very hard to get my luck. But to your point, like I think the chefs that there are a million that you don't.
Right.
For every one that you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But all you see is the ones that are shoved in your face.
You see those ones. So it's like, it's tough. You got to make sure, and I said this before, that you absolutely love, and that's what you can't teach.
Yeah.
You have to be 110% in if you're going to be successful in this business. You can't just be like, that looks like fun. Like, no, it's like, because the fun doesn't happen for a long
there's
time.
There's a lot of hands
and I take that back because I just said
before between.
No, but I take that back. It is fun, but you gotta almost like earn the, like I said, my first 5 years I was having the time of my life. I was broke and sleeping on couches and you know what I mean. But I was having a blast.
Autonomy, though.
You know what I mean?
That's
like
huge.
A blast.
Yeah.
So
at what point did like your career really start to take off? I mean, you have this opportunity to surround yourself with amazing people out of the gate. So your standards are high out of the gates. I think the last thing that you mentioned like is you graduated and you were talking about your trip in Europe.
So I did this trip, which again just kind of opened my eyes, I think, to the
culture,
world, and I knew I was going to come back to Europe to work.
Okay. How long were you on the road?
It was the whole summer.
Okay.
Like whatever that was, 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Straight backpacking, sleeping in hostels, and it was I think every American kid should do that. I know it's a little different now, but
do me a favor before we dive into like the details of your career. Can you just like do super like 30,000 foot cruising at 600 miles an hour? I see that you went back to your dad's restaurant, an American Place, for a little bit. You were with a woman called Patricia. I'm going to have you say the names because I don't want to screw up names. So Patricia Yo.
Well, this is when I got back from that trip. My dad's sous chef had just either quit or got fired.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to unpack my bags. I swear to you, I didn't even get to unpack my bags. My dad's like, I need you to go help at an American Place. And again, I think this was 2000 or 2001. And I basically worked for the next 10 years without stopping. Till
How old were you?
I was 21, 20
By
or
the age
21.
of 30, you had earned your first Michelin star.
So right, but that's what I mean. Like I literally got that trip was like, I hate to say my youth, but like it kind of ended, and boom, I was working 70-hour weeks for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I came back from that trip, went into an American Place, did that I think for about a year. Again, it's all kind of fuzzy these days, and then I met Patricia Yo, which was a great experience. It was her and another chef named Pino Maffeo, who had a great career in Boston. And I got to open a restaurant with them, which
That's huge.
was great.
How long were you with them?
On and off, because I think I came back a year and a half, maybe.
What was
2
after
years.
Laurent?
There was Vicky and Kazuto. Then there was An American Place. Then there was Patricia and Pino. And then Laurent took over AZ. So I worked with Laurent Torndell. We opened BLT Steak together, which turned into like one of the most successful.
Yeah, I saw that you helped
groups.
travel and open up those steakhouses.
But it's kind of interesting. So I had already written my letters to Europe of where I wanted to go or where I would like to go. And Michel Gerard was an old school 3 Michelin star.
He's
for
still
like
kicking,
50
90 years old, I saw.
It's crazy.
He's going.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
He was literally in the kitchen when I was there. He was in the 70s.
Wow.
Still expediting and yelling. You know? I mean, and he's like this tall.
The old brigade.
But he had such a presence. It was like when he would walk into the room, you just. Anyway, so I wrote my letters, and they said yes. And when Laurent took over AZ, it was just him and me in a kitchen for like a month. And it was like before there was any staff in. So like I got to work with Laurent Torndell, who's, he might not be one of those people that's all over Instagram that people know as a quote unquote celebrity chef, but I'm telling you, pound for pound, like one of the most talented chefs, to ever open a restaurant in New York. And I got 4 weeks with this guy one-on-one.
Wow.
And he was asking me, because, he knew my history, it was his everything he had done up to that point was French. And this was going to be his American brasserie steakhouse. So he's asking me, like, how do you make barbecue sauce? Or what do you guys put in a blue cheese vinaigrette? Like, you know what I mean?
But that's
like,
a lesson right there that no matter who you are, what kind of experience you have, there's somebody who can teach you something.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me,
I love
I
that.
took that with me. I take it with me to this day. I mean, I have no problem. I'll ask anybody, for advice or dishes or whatever. But anyway, so we opened BLT Steak. And rave reviews, place is packed, but I had already committed to going to Michel Gerard. So, and he knew that, and he wanted me to go. So I think I was only at BLT Steak for the first 3 or 4 months.
But then you went to France and came back to BLT.
So I went to France. I get to France. Again, 3-star Michelin, like, couldn't be more isolated. It was a 2-hour drive, I think, in any direction. Like, you didn't just, like, walk in. Like, people came there. They stayed at the hotel. They ate at the restaurant. Like, it was like an experience. Like,
this is where, like, the Michelin stars meet something where you're going to this place for this restaurant.
That's it. No, like, literally. There was
Yeah.
400 people that lived in the town,
Yeah.
and 390 of them worked in
I love that.
the compound, we'll call it.
Yeah.
There were 3 or 4 restaurants on the property, world-renowned spa. But anyway, so I worked at my way kind of around, finally ended up at the it's called La Prairie de Eugenie, the 3-star. When I got there, I didn't speak any French, and nobody spoke English. So it took me about 3 months before I could actually talk.
Wow.
So it was like, I think Aaron Rodgers just talked about that silent, dark retreat. Like I was basically silent for like
Just
months.
absorbing.
And then once I could speak, that was when it kind of everything started to move. But like before I could talk, like I couldn't do anything. Like so I just had to like prep. But then I found out later that, because there were other guys in the prep kitchen with me, but I found out later, and I do this now, is they watch how you prep before they decide which restaurant you can like go to. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And, and all you're doing is peeling potatoes, peeling onions, peeling carrots.
What are they looking for?
Just, the
Attention to
speed,
detail,
attention, you know what I mean? Maybe your shoulders aren't shrugged because you're peeling potatoes. It's more like, I want to be here. I want to do this. Give me another case. Like, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, it was that kind of thing. it ended up, I think it was there that I said to myself, I had a lot of alone time there. But it was there that I said, I'm going to be a chef. I want to be a chef.
Yeah.
I want to have my own restaurant. What
was it about this experience that made you say this is what I want?
Well, it's like I said before, when I was in New York, I was just on a pirate ship that was speeding through the world. You know what I mean? Like, drinking at night, every night, and again, crashing on somebody's couch, like working 15, 16 hour a day, 6 days a week. Like there was no like, it was, like, Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, like it was literally that life. Like,
right.
So there wasn't even time to like kind of think. It was more just like, what am I going to do today? You know what I mean?
So what changed in you in this moment of being around in this village?
It was the first time I stopped. You know what I mean? Like I had like this, you hear that? This is what my day off sounded like. It was like going to cooking camp. You know what I mean? Like it was just, and it was again one of the best restaurants in the world. The ingredients, the style of food, the way it's cooked. There was a wood burning grill which stuck with me. There were rotisserie suckling pigs which stuck with me.
What was the feeling you had? What were you feeling during this time when you had this moment? Like what was it specifically that made you think this is?
It went from hell to heaven, all in.
Was there a tipping point?
A year and a half. I told you it was when I could finally. It was like out of a movie. All of a sudden, I was realizing that I could understand them, and it was like everything went from like black and white to color. And once I could understand, then I could really kind of learn and participate and talk and become friends with them. And it went from like isolation, 3 months give or take of isolation, and it was hard.
How long
I almost
were you all
left.
together?
I almost left. A year and a couple months.
Wow. So you basically had a year of like amazing time where you could like communicate.
Oh yeah, no, it was time of my life.
Yeah,
I mean,
amazing.
I ended up working the fish station with this guy. I don't know where he is now. His name was Chef David, and again, it's hard to put into words, but to be a kid from New York, I was the only American there.
Were you living? So I mean, it sounds like you'd think that if you were out staging at this amazing restaurant, going to culinary school and the hotel and restaurant management school, I would say that you were living intentionally. Like this is the path you wanted. But it sounds like from you, like you were just kind of going for a ride at this point, and then it wasn't until this moment that you said, "This is what I want."
It was while I was in France.
Wow.
That I think I have it written down somewhere. Like I'm gonna.
How did you start living differently after this aha moment of this is my path? This is what I want. Were you living more intentionally thereafter?
I think so. Yeah, because now I had a goal. I didn't have a goal. My goal before I went to France was to work service.
Yeah. Now it's what was the goal? To open your own place?
To open my own restaurant.
Okay.
This was my only goal. There was never anything other than I want to open my own restaurant.
So I was going to have you go through and list all these experiences and talk about like what was it that you learned the most during these experiences. But I think I don't want to say you took these other experiences for granted, but were you just kind of going through the motions prior to this point?
No, I wouldn't say I was going through the motions. I was, again, unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to put into words. But when you're a 21-year-old kid, you're making $400 a week, your rent is $1,000 a month. You don't have the opportunity to do anything other than survive. Like you're surviving, but you're also learning. And that's why I think it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And all you want to do, or at least all I wanted to do, was be back in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like they would, like I don't need a day off. Like I just want to be in the kitchen. I want to be cooking. I want to be learning. But until France, I didn't know why I wanted to learn and cook. It felt good. Like it
up to this point, but I don't know if you still communicated the why thereafter. What was the why thereafter?
There was just something that clicked in me that said, while I was there, again, it was a lot of alone time, we'll call it a year-long meditation. I mean, it was, again, if you saw it, you would understand it. But like, I lived in a room that was a studio that had a bed in the kitchen and the bathroom was all the same room.
Yeah.
I didn't have a computer. I didn't have TV. I didn't even have a phone. You know what I mean?
Was your why then the same as your why now?
Yeah. I mean, again.
So what is your why today?
What do you mean by my why?
Like what drives you? Why do you do what you do today?
Because I love what I do. I love it. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Is the work you do today the same work you were doing then?
No. Now I'm doing it for other reasons. I'm doing it for, when I say my morning prayers every day, I pray for the people that work at my restaurant because I know how much they all need the money to support their families. Like I'm now responsible for 400 people and their families.
So,
you know what I mean?
so now what I really want to focus on is the evolution from going from I love doing the thing, I love the food, I love the respect, the relationships, like the people behind everything we're doing, seeing people, being present, these things that have come up in our conversation. You go from working in restaurants to then owning your own restaurant. There's a shift that has to happen where you go from working in it to working on it and creating opportunity for other people, right? So like, when did you, or how did you start living differently from this point on? Now that you know this is what you want to do, how was life different? We're going to take our first break to thank our sponsors. When we come back, we'll unpackage that.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
We're back. So in your story, we left off, you have this aha moment. You're over in France for a year and a few months. You had just worked at was it Chef Laurent? But you left.
I'd opened BLT Steak with Laurent. Yeah.
And then when you came back, what happens?
So I come back. Obviously, BLT Steak has turned into like this like beyond successful restaurant. And Laurent tells me that they're going to open another one called BLT Fish. And it was like perfect timing because like BLT Fish was kind of Laurent going back to his French kind of roots. And he had a restaurant called Cello that was like arguably, the best seafood restaurant in the city when he had it. So everybody's excited. And again, it's fine dining, and we opened the restaurant and I'm on like the opening team helping Chef Matthew Palambino, who's now also a successful restaurateur. And it was like he basically said to me like, help me open BLT Fish and then I'll make you the chef of the next one. So I said, okay, at this point I'm still a sous chef.
Yep.
At the end of the day, I haven't been a chef at this point. So we opened BLT Fish, we get 3 stars from the New York Times, again, kind of just riding this wave of success with Laurent. And then it comes time to open, and I don't know if everybody's kind of paying attention here, but at this point, I think BLT Fish was maybe 4th restaurant that I've now opened. And at this time, I'm only 24 or 25 years old.
That's huge.
It's there, like I can't like put into words for young cooks, and I know you can't choose it, but to try to find at least 1 or 2 openings in your career if you want to open your own restaurant someday, because it's a much different animal to open something than it is to like just work somewhere that's been open.
So, like, give me some examples of why you want, like, things that you were.
Because you have to set up the systems. You have to figure out where the dry storage is going to go. You have to figure out how the systems are going to work. You have to do everything from scratch. And whether you're making those decisions or not, you're watching the people that are making those decisions, and you figure out, how important it is that you pick out the right silverware or the right setting or the right chairs or the right music or the right, it's to be able to be a fly on the wall when all that is happening. You realize that it's not just about cooking. There's 1,000 other things that an owner needs to be responsible for.
And this is the stuff. This sounds like a huge like a transformative time for you, right? Where you're going through. You're now opening these BLT. Was it BLT Steaks that you were the executive chef of?
No. So after BLT Fish, he opens BLT Prime.
Got it.
And that's the first one where I get the keys. Like, okay, you're going to be the chef de cuisine. So this is my first chef job. And I was a young kid, man. I was 20. I don't even know, 6, maybe 27, maybe 26, 27. Actually, I don't even think I was that old. I think I was 25. And you want to talk about sinking or swimming? I mean, I was in way over my head. Like I said, you don't realize how many things you're responsible for when you become a chef. And, you know, whether it's the ordering of the food, the linen, you know, payroll, like, you know, you don't realize, like, now you're not on a pirate ship anymore. Like you're actually in charge of making sure that the ship runs.
Right.
And
I want to unpackage that, but I don't want to just skim over what you dropped on us, this idea of going in to work for somebody where you're just opening, like going to open restaurants and opening restaurants for other people. Like, can you give me like some key lessons, some things that you know now that you learned during that time that you can pay forward to our listeners, like that you would have never gotten if you didn't have that experience of opening restaurants for other people?
yeah, listen. I mean, it's everything.
Right. I hear you. It's hard to think of
Like
just one
somebody
thing.
picked, like when you sit down at a restaurant, somebody picked out the material that is on that banquette that you're probably
It's all
not even
intentional.
noticing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like somebody picked out the table base. Somebody picked
There's
out the
so
table
much to
top.
consider.
Somebody picked out the
Yeah.
napkin. Somebody chose that's how that napkin gets folded. Somebody chose that silverware, and they chose that silverware for a reason. And the box that they bring the silverware to the table in was
Right.
chosen by somebody. There are a million things that
Right.
go on from you just saying, I will take my steak, please.
Right. And so you go from that being intentional with every detail versus walking into where everything's just set. It just is, right?
So again, to see that, like I actually think doing those openings, and I did some with my old man too. The grill room was an opening, above was an opening. It's like that to me is more relevant to creating a chef than actually going to culinary school,
why?
because of everything I just said.
Yeah.
You can't teach that. Like,
Right.
They don't
You have
teach
to
you
live
that.
it.
They
You
don't
have to
have
live it.
restaurant opening class in culinary school. Like
Yeah.
so.
I mean, so if you're listening to this, try to find a restaurant group that's growing, that's opening restaurants, and try to go work on those opening teams.
Yeah, ask to be on that team.
Yeah.
You know, even if you have to take a demotion or, you know, a pay cut or whatever it is, like I would, you know, anything you can do. Like you hear about a chef opening a restaurant, knock on the door and say, hey, can I help?
Yeah,
You know?
and I funnel people to this series of episodes I did with Stephanie Robson. She was a faculty member for Cornell, and she did a kitchen design and layout, like step-by-step course. We did a 3-part series with her. There's so much detail. If you want the detail, listen to that episode. It was episode, I think it starts at episode 855, and it's plus or minus 3 episodes from that episode number. So go check that out if you're looking for this detail. But there's nothing that beats getting into the restaurant and doing it, because like I think you just learn through osmosis. You
Yeah.
just absorb it all. So when you now are the executive chef, right, and you're opening these restaurants, and now there's all these things that you're talking about, like that you were responsible for, that you didn't have to worry about that before. What was your biggest challenge?
You know, one thing that I think gets downplayed in being a chef is understanding that everybody in that kitchen looks to you for the leadership. And, you know, now you have, you know, you have to be the first one in there. You know what I mean? You're the last one out. You know, your station has to be the cleanest. You know, when shit hits the fan, which it will, you know, you're the one that has to be the driving force to getting everybody out of the shit. You know, it's a ton of responsibility, and it is never, ever turned off. It is from the moment you get there to the moment you leave. Every single day you're there, and you can't just be like, you know what, I'm tired today, or I'm in a bad mood today, or you know what, I don't feel like being the leader today. Like, it is every single day, and it doesn't stop. You know, and especially when you're in a busy restaurant. Like it is non-stop. And like I said, you can't have an off day. Like you have an off day, you know, it could be detrimental to the restaurant forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what I think. I don't think people, you know, again, we were talking about this before about where it seems very glamorous, and like it is like,
It's meant to look
It
that
is-
way from the outside
it,
looking
yeah,
in.
it is 24/7, man. Because
Yeah.
when you're not there, you're thinking about what you need to do the next day. Like it doesn't stop. Like,
Yeah.
It keeps you young. That's for sure.
Was there a personal challenge for you going from going to that leadership role? Did you have a
Yes.
personal struggle? What was your
Yeah.
struggle?
It's not easy to do what I just said.
Yeah. But
And
like-
you don't realize, like, you know, it's, you know, and again, I think, you know, looking back, you know, the restaurant ended up being very successful, and, you know, so, but, you know, looking back, like, you know, I look at a 26-year-old kid now, and like, I can't believe that, you know, Laurent had the confidence in a 26-year-old kid to be the chef. You know what I mean? Like, I know times have changed, I guess, but like I look at a 26-year-old kid now and like it's a little baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little kid.
Right.
And here I am in charge of a, $8 million restaurant. And somehow, some way I did it, I think I probably lost a couple years off my life that year, but I did it, you know what I mean? And Laurent was, impressed enough that he then asked me to be basically the corporate chef. So
what year was that? He asked you to be the corporate chef. Ballpark
again, it's fuzzy. Yeah, in the mid 2000s.
Mid 2000s, so like 2000.
If I opened my restaurant in 2008, so this was probably everything I'm talking about with BLT was probably 04ish to 07ish.
Got it.
So
knowing what you know now, the leader you are today, the skills you've picked up along the way, reflecting back at that younger version of yourself, would there be any advice you would give yourself? Or was there something that you were doing that, knowing what you know now, you would have done differently then?
I probably would have saved some more money.
That's a huge lesson. I mean, especially if you want to open your own place, it takes cash flow.
I mean, I was, I mentioned one of these other chefs. His name is Pino Maffeo. You asked also too, the aspects of being a chef. Like one of the bigger things that I think Pino really kind of instilled in me. Again, it's a work hard, play hard, or at least it used to be work hard, play hard business. Pino was one of the ones that instilled in me, like, look, you make more money as a chef. You make more money than everybody else. So, you're going to have to beat them up during service, but you take them out after. You buy them all a beer, you know what I mean? But just make sure that you're the first one back in there the next day. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because, if I could go back and do anything, I probably would have gone out a little less than I was, because I was just spending all my money after at the bar buying rounds for the guys. But at the same time, like,
what goes around comes around.
Yeah, no, it all worked out. So like, maybe I'm not saying I have regrets about it, but
you can't measure it all. This industry is an industry of the details, of the numbers, of measuring things, of tracking the KPIs. But at the end of the day, when you give, you have to have faith that generosity, you can't track it.
Yeah, listen, I was probably the way I was raised. I've always been generous. I still am. Sometimes too generous, but I do it because I know how hard they all work and how hard it is. And like I said, I was there, man. I was broke on a couch. You know what I mean? Like I was like for a while. So. But anyway, so Laurent decides to ask me to be the corporate chef. So I get to do maybe 3 or 4 more openings. So again, man, here I am now. You fast forward, I opened something in Puerto Rico. I opened something in Dallas. I opened something in, New York in the Ritz-Carlton. And I think it was when we opened the one in the Ritz-Carlton was called BLT Market. And this one was like ingredient driven. You got to remember the other ones were kind of steakhouses. Fish was obviously not, but steak and prime. And then when I went to Puerto Rico and Dallas, and these were steakhouses. And when we opened BLT Market, this was back to like almost like full circle. It was like going back to an American place where it was the menu was printed daily based on the ingredients that were in peak season, not just in season, but like week to week.
Yep.
And I think it was there that all of a sudden, like now I'm like plating and creating dishes again, and not just like, kind of steak and, side dishes. And that was where I started to like, almost like get this bug. Like, I missed this food. I missed this style of cooking. It was at an extremely high level. And then there was a moment where I started, and this is when I knew it was time to leave. I started to not give all my ideas to BLT Market because I was keeping them now in my book for my own restaurant. And now all of a sudden I'm saying that in my head for my own restaurant. Well, I'm going to keep this for my own restaurant. And I'm like, whoa. So it's kind of funny. Laurent and I get into a huge fight over fucking breakfast sausage. But it was we ended up making up, but it was like a fuck you. Like, I think
I think these happen in all
yeah,
kitchens.
I think like he happened to come in like while I was changing, so like I had no shirt on. I'm like screaming, and he's screaming at me, and then whatever. We end up meeting up a couple days later, and it was terrible because he's like my mentor.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's also there's something to be said about like creating a space where like you can have it all out, and then like a day later you're hugging. You know, like creating that culture where. Like,
yeah, I mean, listen, he was very intense, and like
Yeah.
he pushed you and pushed, and that's also I mean that as a compliment. Like, he without Laurent Tourndel, there's no way I'm opening my first restaurant. But anyway, we make up. But when we make up, that's when I let him know, like, look, I think it's time for me to move on. Like, I want to do my own restaurant.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, I get it.
You said something that's never been said before on the show is that when you started withholding ideas that you knew was the trigger that you're ready to go do your own thing. Why is that specific?
Well, because I felt guilty. I wasn't giving BLT everything that I needed to give it, and that's not fair. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So that's when I knew it was just time to go. Not in a bad way. It was just time to go.
Yeah.
Like,
How do you have that conversation?
when I had it with Laurent?
Yeah, like no,
Well, I told you the fight kind of ignited it, and then we met for a drink somewhere, Rue 57, I think it was, and sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know, like whatever. We get through that whole part of it, and then it was just like I said, it made it almost easier to then say, and I think it's time for me to move on. I want to do my own spot. And I think we were opening one other thing, and he's like, can you please just finish this thing through? And I did, and I honored it and left in a great way.
Right.
I always love telling this story. The owner of BLT, his name is Jimmy Haber. He asked me to meet for a drink like on my last night, which was weird. Like, he was like, the wizard. Like, you don't, like, he wasn't
behind the curtain.
Yeah, like, what I mean? Like, his office was on like the 80th floor of the high rise. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, anyway, so he asked just me and him to have a drink, which I thought was so weird. But I go, and it's a very fancy place, and like, I don't belong in there. And we're having a drink, and he says, I want to wish you all the luck, but you're probably going to be back in about a year. And I was like, going into this meeting, I thought he was actually going to like give me some money, to open my own restaurant. You know what I mean?
Investment or something.
And I feel like that sentence was like one of the most motivating things that anyone ever said to me. And he didn't mean it to be.
That wasn't the intent.
No. But it like, I swear to you, I think that's probably why I hung on so hard in those first couple of years, because like there was no way I was letting that.
I mean,
come
ego's
to
a double-edged sword, like it can kill you, but it can also like that having that pride can be what you need to get through it.
Like but again, my whole life, like you tell me I can't, like I will. You know what I mean? And like it was just coming from him. It was just like it enraged me. Like I mean, you could still say it, like it's still like enrages me.
But you did say that you left right. I don't know the right words. The exact.
I left
words
the right way.
Yeah, you left the right way. What is the right way?
As much time as your boss, kind of needs you for. Especially somebody that was as good to me as they were.
Right.
I've
absolutely picked up on a pattern that the most successful people in this industry are the ones that almost intentionally push their people out. Not in like they push them out like in a negative way, but like they recognize that there's life beyond my restaurant, and my job is to help you get to where you want to go. What are your goals, and how can I be a stepping stone to that? And when you take that approach of like, how can I help you achieve what you're looking for in life? Eventually, you get the people that just like, this is what I want to do. Like I'm an employee, and that's and there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it.
And there's people that are dreamers.
Not everybody can have their own place.
Exactly. And you go further together. Some people belong in a lane and they like their lane and they want to be able to shut off. They want to be able to go home and not think about the business.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. So like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, what advice do you have to end it right? Is it just about communication? Is it about being upfront?
Again, if it's somebody that's been good to you, ask them what they, is it okay? Like, I'm thinking of going. Like, like, tell me what you want. You want 2 weeks? You want 3 weeks? You want a month? Like, what do you need? Like, talk to me. You know
As
what I mean?
the owner, open the door.
Yeah.
Let them know that you're receptive to whatever it is that you desire. But tell me so I can
do it the right way.
Plan. Yeah. So we can communicate.
Listen,
so
one of my chefs just gave notice. You know what I mean? He gave me 2 months.
So you said you would have never been able to do it without Chef Laurent. What was it exactly that he did that helped you be able to do it? Was it just the experience of practicing under his...
Everything. Like I said, it was like going to restaurant opening college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, it just, when we were doing those like out of state ones, like I was going down by myself a month before anybody got there to hire the team, to set up the purveyors, to, when I say purveyors, I mean everything from where you get the milk to where you get the fryer oil to where you get the uniforms. Like, it was everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So
writing training manuals, like, the being in front of staff. Like,
what about when you go to open your own place? I mean, now I'm assuming that a couple people that you worked with under Chef Laurent probably came with you. Is that safe to say, or did you go from other restaurants?
No, because I wouldn't take anybody.
Well, that's
from him.
Like, how do we navigate those?
So, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we're like an hour in and didn't even open my restaurant yet.
I know, we can get into it. I'm like chomping at the bit. There's just these little nuggets. We're gonna get into it.
So, again, so I give notice, and now it's okay, time to like put my money where my mouth is. I start looking at spaces, and I get a call from somebody who was actually used to be a server at my dad's restaurant. His name's Greg Dodge. I haven't seen it in a long time. But anyway, he's like, I heard you looking for a space. I got a cool thing in Tribeca. I swear to you, I think I even said, like, well, where's Tribeca? So I get on the subway, I get out of the train, and like, there's no numbers on the streets down there. And, I'm literally like, this is before you have a map on your phone and like, I'm asking people, like, where's Reed Street? Like, I can't even find it. And, I get onto Reed Street. I come walking up the block. I see him standing on a porch. And I'm like, God damn it, that's beautiful. Like, I hope this is the space. And like, I walked up the steps, and I don't know if you've never been, but like, it has these beautiful doors that open. Like, when they're open, the whole front of the restaurant's open, And it was not my style of decor, but like, I saw the bones in this place, and like, it hit me like the second I walked up the 2 steps. Like, I was just like,
yeah,
like, this is my restaurant. Like, whoa. And, we have a couple meetings. At this point, sorry, I kind of glazed over something. I've now engaged a kid that I went to college with. His name is Chris Blumlow. And he's going to handle the business side of it. And we sit down with this guy. We haven't raised any money yet.
How old are you at this point? Still 26, 27?
Mid-20s at this point, yeah. And we sit down with this guy, and the guy's like, all right, like, and maybe the 3rd meeting now, and, he tells us what he wants, and whatever it was, I think it was $350,000 for key money. Key money, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, it's what you pay for what is in the restaurant. It could be equipment, chairs,
Turnkey.
Tables, yeah, it's whatever.
The assets inside the 4
Right.
walls.
So we shake hands, and he says, $350K, and, I need 50% of that by the end of the month. And we say, no problem. I'm not making this up. We have $0, and we don't even think we have a bank account yet.
But that is the right mindset to have, though, because
we'll get it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next 6 months, we spend raising money, and I'm, again, try to wrap your head around this, but like, we would go to people's, whatever. We got money from friends and family as much as we could. We were selling $20,000 points, and some people buy 1, some people buy 2, slowly chipping away. And then I met this one guy who had like Wall Street friends. And the next thing you know, I am basically going to people's apartments, and could be anywhere from 5 to 10 people, and we would ask them, I'm not making this up,
I love it though.
bring your checkbook to the dinner. And we would cook dinner for these people in their houses. Chris would be pouring the wine and thing. I'd do like a 4-course dinner, and then people would write a check if they wanted to be in or not. And we ended up raising somewhere around $1 million, and we had enough money to open.
How much time?
Months.
That's awesome, though.
And I'm not joking, man. Nobody bought more than 2 points.
Well, you're actually reminding me of this company that's a new company. It's called Mainvest. And what they do is exactly that. But what you did is you went to your community. And there's not tangible framing out there, resources, pathways to get local money to invest in local business.
Yeah, listen, it wasn't the plan.
But it's
we
such a great
thought
thing.
we were going to meet somebody that believed in us and they would buy the restaurant.
Yeah, but what
we
happens
didn't.
when you have people that are in that community where the restaurant's located? Now they're invested.
Sure, yeah.
And they know the community. They know everybody. They're going to be, hey, go. You're buying promoters.
Yeah,
you know?
but it was hard because
I bet.
as the money was coming in, it was just going out. So like, shit, we need $30,000 to do the whatever it was, HVAC. Like, well, how much do we have in the bank? Well, we got $43,000. All right, looks like we got to go do another dinner. And like, it was like that. So you want to talk about stress? I mean, it was like.
I'm going to promote another Stephanie Robson episode I did there. She talking about the importance of having a pro forma and literally like what are we going to need, and then add 50% onto that because there's going to be something we don't.
No, listen, we raised $1 million.
Yeah,
we should have raised probably 1.5.
Yeah, it's like a magic number times 50%.
But anyway, all these trials and tribulations, we somehow, some way get this thing. And this is just a funny sidebar conversation. The opening day, I go to get a glass of water out of my fridge, and it feels like somebody stabs me in the stomach. I hit the ground, and I lived at the time on 14th Street, so there was a hospital. It's not there anymore. It's called St. Vincent's. I was like 4 blocks away. I literally take 10 steps, go back down to my knees, I'm crawling at this point on the sidewalk to get to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
I get to the hospital. I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me. Like, I can't, like, I'm dying. Like, they put me in a bed, whatever. They start like giving me, I think, pain meds, whatever. And like, I grab the nurse and I'm like, look, I don't know how long this is going to take, but like, I need to be at work in a couple hours. Like, I'm opening a restaurant today. And she's like, laughed at me. She's like, you're not going anywhere, dude. Like, and I was in the hospital for the first 5 days.
What was it? Is that your personal question?
No, it was where my large intestine and small intestine meet. There was some type of inflammation.
Oh, was it stress induced?
Yeah, stress, like whatever. Who knows? Just is bad luck. We'll just call it whatever. And anyway, I spent the first 4 days. We couldn't not open because we have like 100 reservations every night.
Right.
Like, we needed the money.
Right.
Like, so anyway, I missed the opening. But we open, and it's not like a slam dunk because, going back to my dad, like, I think some people, maybe had this anticipation of like I was trying to do an American Place. American Place was fine dining. You wore a tie, tablecloths. You know what I mean?
This is 2008. You're opening this restaurant. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's like keep going. But
well, Forge wasn't that.
Right.
Well, I didn't want it to be that. I wasn't trying to open an American Place. I wasn't trying to do all that. I wanted to do, our like motto was fine dining without the bullshit. So we opened, but again, it's like I said, mixed feelings. You know what I mean? Like, who is this kid? Like, what is he trying to do? We got some good reviews. We got some okay reviews. Nothing really bad, and the restaurant's doing well. Like, we have a good summer. We opened in June. We had a good fall. Like, everything is starting to like kind of hum. We're like, getting our footing, and then November. The financial crisis.
Right.
Again, I don't know where you were, or how old you were, or what you were doing, but
I was a freshman. No, I had just graduated college. Yeah.
So when I tell you, whatever they call that day, Black Monday or whatever the hell it was, like the restaurant went from like 100 reservations, like let's say that Friday, to like 20.
Oof.
And so on and so forth. I mean, it went from, if you want to put it into like a weekly thing, like, we went from doing, I think we're doing like 70,000 a week at that point, to all of a sudden doing 25 a week.
Wow.
Like we do 25 in a night now. Like
you've heard the phone ring.
I mean, it was like, but it was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, poof. And it didn't matter who you were, how good you were, what your name was.
Got scared. I think the media does that sometimes.
I mean, they were going on TV and saying, literally, do not spend your money.
I feel like whatever happened to the recession that was supposed to happen by now? Like, I don't want to jinx it, but like,
I don't know. We're fine.
Yeah, like keep knocking on that wood.
But it was, for anybody that it was old enough to remember it, or who was a business owner at that time, it was insanity. So we went from we had no choice. We went from, let's just say it was 30 employees to 10.
Ugh.
I'm, chef, cook, dishwasher, waiter. I mean, you want to talk about like, how the hell did we end up here, man? I mean, it was as bad as anything will ever be in this industry,
right?
As the owner. But, and this is a very important part of the story, I invest the money that I got to open that restaurant was like a lot of personal people. It wasn't just some rich guy from Wall Street that wanted to have a restaurant. Like this was like, I took money from my grandma, like, my college roommates, their parents, like,
friends,
my high school friends.
Yeah.
I mean, it was as friends and family as you could possibly get that invested in this restaurant. And they didn't give me money that would kill them, but I looked at all of them in the eye and I said, I swear to you, I'm going to make this work. When I got the money, not during the recession. I think they all would have been fine if we closed. You know what I mean? They would have understood and none of them would have got hurt. Like it would have been fine, but I couldn't do it. Like you know what I mean? And I couldn't do it. I looked them all in the eye. So like we did everything we could possibly do to keep that thing going. And what that meant was, like I just said, like, we couldn't afford to have staff. So we had to do everything ourselves. And it was nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, nuts.
How long did that go on?
I mean, I'm like trying. It's crazy. It's almost like PTSD. Like you can't even remember it. But I mean, I would say it was almost a year.
Yeah, yeah.
It's probably a year.
I mean, what's going through my mind is this, like owning a restaurant is, it's systems. Yeah, it's culture. Yeah, it's marketing. Yeah, it's all these things. But I think we underplay how much of it is mindset, and how much of it is just saying like I'll figure it out, and thinking like and believing full-heartedly that it's possible. Because as soon as you think that it's hopeless, as soon as you think that there is no way, you're right. Your mind shuts off. You give up. You throw in the towel.
I mean, listen, if there was ever a moment where I didn't think it was going to work, it was then. That's for sure.
But you said to your friends, you said to your family, you said to all these people that were putting themselves out for you.
Yeah, I'm going to make it work.
I'll make it work. Yep. What happens is your mind literally, your frontal lobe is that problem solver, and like it literally starts to manifest possibilities of things you can do. Just like when you were trying to get the money. Yeah. How do we get this? We can't get this money in this amount of time. Yes, we can. Let's start knocking on doors. Yeah. And you just start figuring it out. You start making a smaller menu.
One problem at a time.
Yeah, and you will get through it. And I think that's why it's so important to figure out how this thing between your ears works. Yep. Mindset and understanding that you can control your mind if you don't succumb to the emotions. If you override these feelings, these things inside your head that are telling you can't do it. Put that shit to sleep.
Yeah. Listen, my grandma, I say it to my son now, my grandma, like one of her real serious lessons that I take with me, and I try to tell anybody that'll listen, if you take the word can't out of your vocabulary, there is never a moment in your life where you should ever say that word. Ever. And if you live your life without saying can't, you'll accomplish a lot more.
I love that.
And
man.
try it. Like everybody out there, try it.
Right. It's so true. And like your mind is so powerful. It will literally invent ways to get you to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I am curious, how many restaurants do you own today?
3 and a partner in 1.
How many have you owned over time?
Oof, that's a loaded question. I don't know. We'll call it a dozen.
A dozen.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. So you opened your first restaurant in 2008.
Yeah.
That wasn't Restaurant Marc Forgione.
Yeah, that was Forge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you said Forge, and it kind of threw me. Sorry, I was like
Forge is my nickname. So like
okay.
the name was it was originally called Forge, and part of this while the recession was happening, we also got threatened to be sued by a restaurant in Miami called The Forge, and
got it.
We changed it to Marc Forgione, but we still call it Forge.
Got it. So as a restaurateurs, like as their restaurants grow, their role tends to grow. Like you said, like that first year, like because of the economy and everything, you were the restaurant. It was the definition of a person-dependent operation. If you didn't show up, it didn't open. Right?
No, and it was like that for the next couple of years because, I had become so like ingrained in it that like, there wasn't any other way to do it. Like I had to be the chef and be there all the time. And, because if not, like, because of the recession and I took on so much responsibility, it took years to then relinquish those responsibilities. You know what I mean? Like I did everything for a couple of years.
Well, I think most restaurant owners can relate to that. It starts off
Sure.
with them and their vision, and they will it into existence, right? But over time, eventually, you have to.
Yeah, it's actually better. Again, anybody listening, it's better to delegate as much as you can because it gives you a different view. Like when you're in it, sometimes you don't see the whole thing, and and as hard as it is, and it was for me to kind of open the hands a little bit, and maybe it is okay if I don't expedite on Friday night. Like they can do it. Like wow, they're gonna. But just to go back to the recession, because it leads to like kind of everything, is everybody was telling me to switch to like hamburgers and steak frites, and which I love. I love cheeseburgers and steak frites.
Who doesn't like cheeseburgers?
But I had worked my ass off up until this point in my life, and like the last thing I wanted to do was like just start serving like basic food, just because that's what people were telling me would get me through the recession. I was like, honestly, I'd rather close than serve some stuff that I'm not, into. And because of that, when the Michelin Guide came out that year, I mean, it was such a shock, a pleasant shock. It's actually kind of a funny story, just to give you guys a visual. Like I get a call on my voicemail. I wake up. Sorry, I'm glazing over something.
No, you're fine.
At a certain point, we couldn't do it anymore. Like it was done. And I get approached by Danny Abrams, guy who has the Mermaid Inn, and he wants to buy the restaurant. And this was like the best way that I could see getting money back to my friends and family. It wasn't going to be all of it, but it was going to be some of it. Like there was just nothing we could do anymore. Like it was just dead. And I think we even had the contract written up, and it was like on a Friday or end of the week. I wake up that Monday morning. And that was 2000, it had to be 9. And there's a voicemail on my phone from the Michelin Guide welcoming me to the Michelin Guide.
Wow.
On my fucking voicemail. And I'm like, this is a joke. Like, this is a joke.
So this isn't a star. Is it like
No, this is a star.
This was the star. Okay.
But I'm like, there's no way that they tell you that you have a Michelin star on your voicemail. Like, this is impossible. I thought it was Laurent. I called Laurent. I'm like, you fucking around? You messing with me? And so I find out we have the Michelin star. So I called Danny. I'm like, look, Danny, I can't sell my restaurant the day that I find out we get a Michelin star. And the reason I was bringing up the burger and the steak frites thing is like,
Imagine if you did sign the papers.
Well, never mind sign the papers. Imagine if I had switched it to burgers and steak frites.
Right.
None of that would have happened. It was just something in my gut was telling me like this is you're not supposed to do fried chicken and
It
burgers.
wasn't inflammation, was it?
What's that? Like it was, and I tell this to people all the time. Like your best friend is your gut. Like follow your gut. You know what I mean? Like only you have your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's some science that's starting to support this now. It's really interesting. There's bundles of nerves. They say your heart speaks to you, right? And like they're starting to realize that there's bundles of nerves in your heart and in your gut where your gut and your heart literally talk to your brain.
Yeah.
And when we form in the womb, like it starts there. And there's a lot of science that's like there's a two-way street going on.
Yeah.
Like trust your gut because it's communicating to the low road of your consciousness. You might know about this with psychology and all this. Like there's stuff that's going on inside of our brains that we're not even aware of. It's operating at hyper speed, super ultra aware of things that we're like consciously not even aware of are happening below the surface. And that gut feeling you're getting is that data that we're picking up constantly saying, stay true to your course. Like you can't ignore it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say it's going to work out 100% of the time, but I think most of the time you feel okay with something not working out as long as you followed your gut.
You know, regrets.
So we get to Star, and it's not like that like solved everything, but the world started to come back a little bit. Because we had the Star, like we're doing an extra 10, 15 covers a night, and it starts to roll, and everything starts to kind of take off a little bit. Like, we're still losing money, but we're losing less money, And then that's when I get the call from the Food Network. So up until this point, I'd been asked to go on, Top Chef, and I always said no to those types of things. They never like got me going.
Yeah.
But I love and loved Iron Chef.
Why?
There was something very pure about it. Like it wasn't like, there wasn't cameras following people around in the house and like causing drama, and like it was just two great chefs with a great ingredient make 5 dishes.
Yeah,
like in an hour. Like,
what you were doing for your friends and going back,
like what I do. Yeah. Like what all chefs do.
Yeah.
And the year before, they had just come out with this new show called The Next Iron Chef, which I watched and I loved it. Mm-hmm. It was the one Michael Simon won. And anyway, so I get a call from the Food Network, and they're like, look, we just had somebody back off of the show. We have 1 spot left. I end up talking to this person. It's like an interview, basically. Yeah. We talk for like an hour on the phone, and they call me back the next day. They're like, okay, if you want to do it, like you can come. Oh shit, sorry. I glazed over a very serious part of this.
You're good.
That summer, we now have the Michelin star. The restaurant's like doing better. I am screaming at somebody. I probably shouldn't have been, but I'm screaming at somebody. Somebody comes into the kitchen and tells me to be quiet. A guest comes into the kitchen and tells me to be quiet. I'm like, what the fuck was that? And the whole kitchen is like, what the hell was that? Like, who's this guy? So I go out to the dining room, and I'm like, look, man, just so you know, like the only reason I was, yelling, again, follow your gut. I didn't have to go to that table, but I like took like a moment. I was like, no, you have to go out to that table. Like, like the only reason I was yelling was because I'm trying to make sure the food that comes to the table. And he like waves his hand in my face. He's like, I'm not interested in what you have to say. So at that point, and this is a very important part of the story, that's why I kicked him out. I didn't kick him out because he came into the kitchen. I kicked him out because of the disrespect that he gave me at the table.
Back to that word.
So this happens. This guy gets kicked out. I get a call the next day. Or sorry, my office manager comes into the kitchen the next day, and she's like, the New York Times is on the phone.
Oh, man.
At this point, we had not gotten a New York Times review yet. And when the New York Times does a review, they call it a fact check. And I'm like, oh, shit, like the Times came in, like, we missed them,
You kicked them out.
So I'm like, all right. So I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, And he's like, is this Marc Forgione? I'm like, yeah, this is Marc Forgione. He's like, well, my name's Ron Lieber. I'm like, how's it going? I didn't know the name. He's like, I'm a writer for the New York Times, and I'm the guy you kicked out last night. And I think he almost called to like see if I was going to apologize in a weird way. And I didn't, because I was like, look, man, I explained to him, I didn't kick you out for coming in the restaurant, in the kitchen. I kicked you out for the way you treated me when I came to the table. Da-da-da-da. And he's like, well, do you mind if I read an article about it? And I was like, I'm sure you're going to write the article however you want. Yeah. So like, whatever, like you don't need my blessing, like, And anyway, he writes this article. It's kind of funny. I don't know if it's still online, but he writes this article and it fucking goes like whatever viral was back then.
News circuit.
You know what I mean? Like it just thousands of hits. Right. And I think that the title was like, I don't know, man, like our chefs really, it was just like, I think Eater put it up and it said, who was a bigger asshole in this situation or something like that. Like it just like turned into like a thing. But, every time they talked about it in these articles that were getting like sent to different outlets, it was Michelin star chef Marc Forgione down in Tribeca. Michelin star chef Marc Forgione down in Tribeca. Michelin star chef Marc Forgione down in Tribeca. And I'm telling you, we had people call the restaurant like, we didn't even know you guys were there. Are you Larry's son? Like it was like, like all of a sudden like this like thing started to happen because I kicked this guy out. And we actually had some people come in like asking if I would yell at them. Like it got a little weird. But I think people kind of thought I was crazy. Yeah. This was also when Gordon Ramsay was like in his thing and
putting that show on.
Yeah. So the Food Network calls kind of because of that, right? They needed somebody. They saw whatever. I have a mohawk. I'm young. I'm apparently crazy. Like this would be
good for you.
He's got a Michelin star. Like this is great. Yeah. Like we'll take him. You know what I mean? So I get on the show, and when we're doing like the first photo shoot thing, like the guy's like, he's like, get me fucking angry. Like, come on, get me. And I'm like, no, I don't do that, bro. Like that's not what I do. Like, if you're disrespectful to me, like I'll kick your ass, but like I'm not, I don't just yell,
It's not for show. Like,
right. Yeah. So anyway, I end up, and I did not go on that show to win. And I know it might sound weird. Like I didn't think I was going to win. Like,
what do I have to
It would be like a kid that plays baseball, like thinking they're going to play in the Yankees. Like I was like, I'll go, I'll try to get more butts in seats.
Yeah.
If I can not go home first,
awesome.
Yeah. And I end up winning the show, and there's a lot of it. And, we could do a whole podcast on that 2 months of filming that show, but it came down to the end again, talk about following your gut. And it was Battle Thanksgiving. And I kind of grew up, my parents would take us to like Native American powwows, and I've done vision quests, and my teacher's name is Little Hawk, and so I have like this kind of history. And as soon as they told me it was going to be Battle Thanksgiving, like I knew I wanted to honor the Native American side of Thanksgiving, not necessarily just turkey and cranberry sauce. So I just did a little research, and I got some info on the first Thanksgiving. It was in 1621. It was called the Harvest Festival. And, they didn't eat turkey. And I do this dinner, and it's like in honor of the Harvest Festival. I don't cook turkey, even though some advice I got from some other people was like, you have to cook turkey. It's Thanksgiving. Like they're gonna, like you're gonna lose, bro. And I'm like, I'm telling you, my gut's telling me I don't need to cook turkey. And I get up, and I finish my presentation. I do my last dish, and the judges are Bobby Flay, Michael Simon, Morimoto, Alton Brown. Like it's like, the creme de la creme of Iron Chef. And Bobby Flay is like, he starts talking to me. He's like, listen, man. He's like, I got to tell you, like, if I'm, however old I was, if I'm 29 years old and, I know that I have 5 dishes to represent Thanksgiving, and this is going to change my life, and I see a turkey up on that altar, like, I got to tell you, bro, I'm cooking that turkey. And I was like, oh, shit. Like I fucked it up. Like,
Well, this was fun.
But then he goes, and then he gives me a butt. He's like, but like you pulled it off, man. Like I got to tell you, like, you know, the story is great. Whatever. He was impressed.
Was there a protein?
Yeah. So I mean, the original Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving's coming up, right? The original Thanksgiving was in 1621. It was called the Harvest Festival. But there was an Englishman named Edward Winslow who wrote a letter back to England describing the first Thanksgiving. So it's very well documented. And there was amazing ingredients that they ate. I mean, it was like cod. I mean, everything that is from the Northeast.
Right.
I mean, it was cod, lobster, squash, corn, venison. There was fowl, so like, you know, duck and, you know, again, all these things. But turkey just wasn't there, you know, at that particular dinner. So anyway, I win that. And, you know, I come back, but we couldn't tell anybody I won because we filmed it in the summer. And then it didn't air until October.
Just in time for Thanksgiving.
And then...
Were there any specials being written that day?
In the same time, unbeknownst to us, the New York Times was coming in to eat to give us a review. But we didn't catch him. We caught him once. His name, Sam Sifton, was the critic at the time. Came in 5 times. We only caught him once. And he, you know, this is the week that changed my life. So it was October 2010. So that Monday, we found out that we retained the Michelin star. That Wednesday, the New York Times comes out, and it's like one of the best reviews you could ever get. That Thursday, I get Rising Star Chef from Star Chefs. And that Sunday, the next Iron Chef premieres.
Wow. So when it rains, it pours, man.
Dude, it was 6 days of like,
tsunami. My
God. And the restaurant has never been slow since that week.
Wow. That's crazy.
Since that week.
That's crazy, dude. I think now's a great time to take a break to thank our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk about what's happened since.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
We're back. So you just told an amazing story, man, with tons of detail. But this, all of a sudden, you get all this press. You, like you said, the Star Chef, the Iron Chef, the New York Times. You retain your Michelin star, like in busy sense, and operating in the black which was probably the best award. What was that like, dude?
I swear to you, I remember the first week we did. I mean, it was just like, wait a minute, we didn't lose money this week?
Yeah, man.
Are you kidding me?
Like, what was that like?
Drinks are on the house.
Yeah, time to start giving it away again. But like, to get into it, man.
It was, like I said, man, unless you lived it, that year, it was like being in jail. You know what I mean? And like, it was like to get out. It was like, I'm free. Like, it was like, that year was so it's unbelievable to try to put it into words how hard it was.
Right.
So to now get this and to have it, and for people to, you know, start saying the things that I think everybody like that was close to us knew. Now all of a sudden people are like, oh wow, this is a good restaurant. Wow, this guy can cook. Like, oh, that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it felt so good to, like, I don't know, kind of just get what we deserved as a restaurant.
Right.
And now it was time to, you know, okay, well, now how do we do this? You know what I mean?
Right. So, I mean, I think this reinforces some of the biggest lessons on the show. The biggest reason why restaurants fail is because they're undercapitalized. You won all these awards. Like, nobody's questioning your ability to cook. Yeah. You were so close to failure, and it was when you were about to get a Michelin star. You were so close to failure, and you go and you win the praise of all these amazing Iron Chefs. Like, you need a runway. You need operating capital. So whatever you think it's going to cost you to open your restaurant, times 50%, and then find out what your operational expenses are going to be for a year after.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say I would have a year of capital in the bank. I would have a year.
You're living proof that even if you have 10,000 hours and you grew up under the roof of an amazing restaurateur and you travel the country and you work with these amazing chefs and you can cook the fucking pants off anybody, pardon my language, you still need time to get the word 100%. Out.
And again, everything you just said, it's like 50% of it.
Right.
There's another 50% that has nothing to do with how talented or driven or like, you know, it's tough, man.
You get one shot. You know, and if you go out and you think it's hard to ask for money to open a restaurant once, try to do it twice.
Yeah, you know, 100%. And that's why too. Listen, they don't do it unless you're ready to do it. You know what I mean? Like, make sure you're ready.
Right. So they're huge underlying lessons there. So now you have cash flow. Now the hard part's done. Right. You have cash coming in. Now you got to figure out how to do it all. What were your biggest challenges? Like, I'm sure all of your problems didn't go away once there was money.
No, I mean, you know, listen, now it's just new challenges. Okay, well, now we have people coming in the door. Okay, well, now we have to figure out how to keep payroll under, you know what I mean, 30%, or we got to keep food cost under, 25%. Like, you know, like now it's like we went from surviving to now operating.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
you know, it's funny you say that because I'm actually having this argument with my team right now, talking about like we're trying to relaunch Restaurant Unstoppable Network to this where we're going with Restaurant Unstoppable. And the question we're asking is like, who is our target market? Somebody who hasn't opened or somebody who's about to open or who is open? I'm like 90%. Those are the same people. Most people who are open haven't figured it out yet. They're open, but they realize like, oh shit, I'm open and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Pardon my language again. But like those two people are the same. And I'm trying to encourage people from day one, have your systems, processes. Like there's tools and resources out there today where you can have these things in place before you ever turn the key on. Right.
Yep. So, and listen also too, for any chefs out there that are listening, like you got to make sure you have a good partner.
Well, I was
somebody that you trust, somebody that understands the business side of it, because, you know, we're chefs and like, you know, our brains, you know, we're creative people, our brains, it's a different way of thinking. And like, you need somebody to like kind of pull the reins on.
Rocket fuel, they call it EOS. I don't know if you're familiar with EOS, but it's the integrator, the person that's good at the systems and processes that can take your vision and build systems and processes and be your rocket fuel. So you mentioned that when you opened, you had partners. It was you, the operations person, and there was another person. You said there was
the original one was just myself and Chris Blumlow.
And who was the operations guy?
That was Chris.
Yeah. Did he survive through? Was he with you the entire time?
Chris and I are still partners to this day. I mean, we're about to close shop and move, and then he's going to go on to something else. But yeah, we had a 15-year run, man. Wow. I mean, it's a long time, especially for two kids that, you know, really just took a chance on doing this thing, man. I mean, you know, but, you know, to answer your question, like, you know, at this point now, you know, now you had to like operate the business, and, you know, you'd be surprised that sometimes when it gets busier, you know, it doesn't solve everything because now you need more people.
Right. Yeah. It's just a whole new set of problems. You know, but it never changed. Like as you grow, and I don't think people realize that, like say you get to 5 locations, right? Now it's like, okay, we're going to try to go to 20. That's a whole new different organizational structure. That's a whole new set of problems.
Yeah. I'm kind of, you know, in that now, you know what I mean? You know, you kind of fast forward, you know, to where you are now. And to your point, like, you know, it's a different set of problems. You know what I mean?
Paint the picture. Where are you now?
You know, so right now I have my own hospitality group, which I started last year.
Respect Hospitality.
Yeah, it's called Respect Hospitality. And that entails Restaurant Marc Forgione, Peasant, which we're sitting today, which we're sitting in, and I bought in 2020, and 1/5, which we opened a year ago. So those are the 3 restaurants, and you know, I think we would like to bring Peasant in particular to other locations, because it's just a very special restaurant that I think no matter where you put it, as long as you can do everything that, you know, we're looking at, like with the live fire and you know, the food that we do, it's like there's no pretentiousness to it. Like you could put it in and fill in the blank of any city, I think. At least that's the plan. But as you were just kind of alluding to, it's a whole different group or set of people that you have to like set up to now go do that. Right. You know, like and you don't want to just open one because you have to create a team. And to do that, it's like you almost have to open 3
because you need the
to
cash.
pay for the team.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you see when people get to that point, they grow so fast because they have to support the beast.
And also too, I mean, listen, I say this to people because back in the day, you know, like it was like, you know, a chef had a restaurant and like that was it. That was their life. That was their career. The way that it is now, and this is just New York. Like I can't speak for any other cities, but you know, in New York, it's gotten harder since I opened Forge to operate a New York City restaurant. You know, the minimum wages have all gone up.
City bought it in 2020. Forge, not Peasant. My bad.
Yeah, no, just in the last 15 years, like I said, I mean, the minimum wage has gone through the roof. You know, now what you pay just a line cook, which is great. I'm happy that they're all making money. Trust me.
Yeah.
But it's just the things that you used to be able to kind of hang your hat on to kind of make a profit, you know what I mean? They've all kind of gone away.
Right.
And like, I hate to say it, but like I don't know if you've noticed, but New York City is very expensive to eat now.
Yeah. I was going to ask, did rent go down after the pandemic?
Did what?
Did rent go down at all after the pandemic when there was a mass exodus?
No.
No?
Yeah. Like if you signed a lease, you got a good lease. But, you know, it went right back up. Like there was like a bubble, which I actually got. I benefited from being at the right place, right time, and negotiating leases during COVID.
So these margins are shrinking. What are you doing to overcome it?
Well, that's what I was just trying to get into now is like, and you know, COVID had a funny way, man, of shaking like the tree, and like what was stayed in the tree was supposed to be there. But COVID had a way of, at least for me, showing me that you could do more with less. You know, like Forge is a perfect example. You know, I had an office manager, 3 front of the house managers, a sous chef, sometimes 2 sous chefs, a pastry chef, a pastry team. And, you know, now I have, you know, 2 chefs, 2 managers, and a corporate pastry chef that does all 3. So like I just took away almost $400,000 a year in payroll, but we're still operating at a level that is as good as it's ever been.
So operationally, what changed? What are you doing different operationally to free up that cash flow?
I think it's, like I said, putting more on the people that you have. You know what I mean? Getting the right people that now my managers can do the work that the office manager used to do for the managers. You know what I mean? Like, not to say that my managers weren't working hard enough back then, but kind of they weren't.
Is it? Well, yeah. I mean, I think what happens.
But it was also because that's how
it's drift.
That was like the norm. You had an office manager. Every restaurant I ever worked at,
right?
You had an office manager.
It's what you knew.
That's what I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, but we don't do that anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, you're bringing up something really interesting. Like, so did you? You putting more on fewer people. That's coming out of this. I'm hearing that. Correct.
Yep.
Are
finding people that can handle that.
And finding people that can handle it. Are there other things you're doing to empower those people? Is it the same set of tools they're working with, or are there new resources that you're leveraging?
I mean, I think, listen, just myself alone, you know, I'm older and wiser than when I was managing the older teams, you know what I mean? So that in itself.
So how are you wiser? What are you doing now that you didn't do with the old team? This is where I really push and pry, man.
Yeah, no, it's not so much it's a combination of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. Like, you know, maybe back then, you know, there was a little more of a party atmosphere. So it was like things kind of got, you know, like it was acceptable. Like it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about it. Like, oh, you're tired? Don't worry. Like, you know, we have plenty of people to cover you. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
now it's like we can't mess up.
Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little
cultural shift.
Yeah, cultural shift. But, you know, I think the place has grown up with me.
Yeah.
I'm not the same person I was when I was 35. I'm 45 now. You know what I mean? Like, and the restaurant, I think, feels like that. You know? And like I said, from a culinary perspective, you know, I've found people that can handle what I need them to handle. You know, I think back then I would just kind of push somebody aside and be like, I'll do it then. You know, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, and like I said, I think the pastry thing was a big shift, you know, to have one chef for the 3 restaurants as opposed to having a pastry chef in each restaurant with a pastry team.
Right.
Like, you got to remember, like, let's just say a pastry chef, $90,000 plus her 2 or 3 or him, 2 or 3 cooks. Like, now you're talking about $220,000 in payroll that now I have split between the 3 restaurants.
Right.
Like, that alone
Right.
is it's $500,000 when you do it with the 3 restaurants.
It's what, you know, when you started this, you know, like you went
and I wouldn't have thought of that when I was younger.
Right. But I think it also goes to show that, like, you can do more with less if you just say, like, we're going to figure it out. Like, when it's just you and your partner, and you guys were there 70 hours a week trying to get through that first year. You figured it out.
Yep.
When we go through hard times, it forces you to figure it out. And then when you come out of those hard times, you're like, we're stronger and we're galvanized. Yep. Like, you know, we figured out how to get lean and we're operating better now.
Yeah. And I also glazed over something very important. Respect Hospitality is in a partnership with another hospitality group called Après Crew.
Okay.
And they have, you know, their own resources with, you know, we'll call it accounting and HR and, and all these things that you do need in today's restaurant world. Après Crew.
Après Crew. So this is something that you're just seeing people getting smarter in general. I think that there is a transformation happening right now. Après Crew.
Après Crew.
Where there's companies like this, like Après Crew, that are coming up where they stay in their lane. And I don't think you can do it anymore like they did it 20 years ago, where there's one person with a partner and together, you know, going forward, I think you either need to find strategic partners like Après Crew, where they do what they do, the back of house. So you can focus on what you do. And it's almost like you're seeing like these fractional CFOs and fractional CMOs or fractional accountants, where you have one person who does that specific skill set for multiple people.
Yeah.
And that's what these groups are. They bring together skill set individuals, create a team of skill set individuals, and they handle the whole back office suite of responsibilities.
Yep. And you need that. Like I said, today's world, you need HR. You know, today's world, you know, there's so much information. I mean, you know, the technology now that runs, you know, a restaurant where, you know, I mean, listen, when I started, there was handwritten dupes that were into a thing and cash and and now, you know, everything is, done through systems and programs and,
the systems are now digitized.
Yep.
And
everything.
And I'm trying not to be pitchy, man. I don't want to sound pitchy, but like right now I'm going I'm kind of getting vulnerable here and opening up. We're going through this phase of like, what's the future of Restaurant Unstoppable? And like after over 1,000 interviews, like I need to pick up like something that I believe in and start telling people like, this is what I would do. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, after 1,000 interviews, there's so many different ways to run a restaurant. And not one way is the right way. It all depends on who is the person running the restaurant and their vision and their values and their strengths and their weaknesses. So with all that in mind, do you want me to pause?
No. I just didn't. I saw big boxes. I didn't know what it was.
With all that in mind, it's like, I have to ask myself, what am I, Eric Cacciatore, doing tomorrow if I'm opening a restaurant? And like the point that you're making, there's tools and resources today. You don't have to do it all alone. Like you can partner with companies, whether it's a Toast or whether it's a Restaurant Systems Pro, that there's technology that you can put in place of people, or at least give your people the tools so they can do more.
Yep.
So you don't need 10 people to do the job. You need 2 people because they have tools and resources that supplement.
And again, I said it before too. You have to find the right people that can do more. You know what I mean?
Right.
Than it was back in the day. Like, you know.
What do you mean by that? Like, help me read between the lines. Just
like I said, instead of having 2 sous chefs, you have one, and that one sous chef has to be really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of having 2 sous chefs that are good, you have one that's really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you have the. And making sure that you help him, and making sure that he has, to your point too, the tools that are all set up to make it go. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, So if we have 15 or less than 15 minutes together, right? We'll say 10 more minutes together. I am curious. This is something I want to start talking about. Where is the industry headed? And what are you doing to be there when the industry gets to wherever it's headed?
That's a good question, man. Where is it headed? I mean, I'm trying to kind of talk about New York. Like you said it before, and I think I'll kind of echo what you said. It's tough in today's world for somebody to do what Chris and I did. And what I mean by that is just mom and pop, raise money from friends and family, and open a 60-seat restaurant and cross your fingers and hope everything works out. It's tougher these days to do that.
Is it because of the increase in operational expenses?
Yes, and rent. And when I opened Forge, the rent was $14,500. It's now $34,000. You know what I mean? The minimum wage back then, it's tripled. You know what I mean? So you have to, it's harder to do all that. You know what I mean? We opened that restaurant for $1 million. Again, we discussed probably should have raised 1.5, but the new restaurant that I'm about to do, cost almost $4 million.
Right.
$4 million. That's not you can't get that from mom and pop friends and family.
Right.
It's just, so that's what I mean by I just don't know if the future entails mom and pop restaurants, which I think is kind of sad in a way. You know what I mean? But you also have to find people that have money, let's say a business partner that wants to have that mom and pop restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of look at Peasant as a mom and pop restaurant. I bought it from Frank at a beyond reasonable key money. And, I did it before I had Après Crew. My sister's the general manager. My dad helps find ingredients. The chef has been here since day one. I kept the crew that he had, and it's kind of as close to a mom and pop restaurant as you can get to in modern day world.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you. And, so Restaurant Unstoppable's mission statement, I try to echo it as much as possible, is to inspire, empower, and transform. Really, it's to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. And I believe that if we can transform the restaurant industry, we have this industry, second largest industry behind healthcare, and we touch so many people. You know what I mean? We have hundreds of people coming through our doors, the front doors every day, and thousands of people over the lifetime of your restaurant coming through the back door. You know what I'm saying? We have the ability to influence and transform the next generation of professionals, and those people are going to go on to other industries. If they come into the professional workplace with high standards in systems and processes and culture and healthcare and all these things, take care of your people,
Yep.
This industry can change the world. I full-heartedly believe
Yeah.
that. But I think
it does.
It does. It's happening right now. And I think I share your sentiment with there is a change, and the days of mom and pops are getting harder and harder because you need to be so good at what you do today to compete, because we're getting the big guys are getting so efficient. And how do you compete with those resources, and how do you compete with the resources they have to go digitize and not only have the resources within the four walls, but to take that service digitally? And it's about throughput, right? How do you compete with all that? I think the only way to do it is with strategic partners. And I'm going to go out on record here. And if I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, I'm investing in technology that replaces people. I'm not saying I'm replacing people, but I'm making it possible for fewer people to do more.
Yeah, you have. Well, again, as I just said, you have to.
Yes,
it's impossible.
The only way.
It's impossible to have a fully loaded staff these days. The way that you used to have, you know what I mean? But again, you just find the right people.
Right.
That's the most important. I mean, it always kind of has been the most important part, is you find the right people.
So
and with all the technology and the systems and all that stuff, which I agree you need.
Doesn't matter if they're not the right people running it.
And, something that, trust me, I preach until I'm blue in the face, making sure that it's not just the VIP, quote unquote VIPs that you treat like VIPs, good old fashioned hospitality in my opinion, has like never been more important.
Oh man, why?
Because because I believe in it, and that's the most important part. I always tell people, your job is to make people smile, whether you're a dishwasher or the general manager. Like, your job is to make people smile, and if you can't do that, you take the systems and shove them up your ass. Like, it's not going to work. Like, that's first and foremost. But in today's world, everybody has a platform to be a critic as well.
Right. There's a lot of truth to that.
It's like, trust me, I start my day, as much as I hate to admit it, I read all the reports, and reviews.
How healthy is that?
And as long as you take what you can take constructively out of it. You know what I mean? If it's somebody like, this place sucks, the chef has a stupid haircut, and, it's like, okay,
I like your haircut,
skip,
for the
you know what I mean? You just skip, like whatever. But, if you have somebody that's like, we had a great experience, but, I couldn't find my server for 20 minutes. Like,
that's great,
yeah, you can, it's not like you fire the person, but you come in, you sit down, you say, look, what happened last night, by the way? Because table 21 said that, and they, I was really in the weeds, chef, I'm sorry. Like, you know what I mean? You can like build off it. So, but because of that is what I'm trying to get at. Like, if you don't have a 4.5 star rating, listen,
that's a 90% rating for the record.
I don't know.
4.5 sounds so much worse than 90%, but in our minds, we're like, oh, it's not 5.
But my point is like, and like my little brother, like, when we're traveling together, that's what he does. He goes and looks at reviews.
I'm on the road
That's
constantly
that's how he goes to eat. Yeah. You probably do it too. Like,
I guilty. Yeah.
And if what's not guilty, it's the way the world is. And so like, if you don't have that 4.5, like,
yeah,
you're screwed.
This is why I'm talking to people like Adam Gilt from owner.com, because like I just interviewed him recently and I was honestly blown away, because this guy's a savant when it comes to marketing. He was a millionaire by the time he was like 14 years old. Like, he's just one of these people who operates on a different wavelength. And like, he's like, people are wasting their time on social media and doing like all that matters right now is how easy is it for you to be discovered. Like, put all of your energy right now. Most important thing, website and SEO and like Google like Maps. Like, that's where all of your traffic comes from. And you need to own that SEO. Like, that's the most important thing. We put so much energy into like doing dances on social media. And it's just like that platform isn't geared towards local marketplaces. It's global marketplaces. Like, unless you're in New York where people come here all the time, like, there really isn't much sense to be on social media.
I hate social media.
It's horrible, man. It's destroying the world. This has been a lot of fun, dude. We're going to start wrapping up the conversation and asking you these coined questions I ask at the end of every interview. So, what's one thing about your business, values, process, systems that's uncommon that makes you unstoppable?
Honestly, not to beat a dead horse here, but I think the way that we respect each other, the way we respect the guests, the way we respect the ingredients, it's like fill in the blank after the word respect. And we really try to like live that mantra. And, to be candid, when I told my partners that I wanted to name it respect, they were worried. Because they were like, well, that puts a lot of pressure on us, don't you think? And I was like, you're goddamn right it does.
That's the whole point of language.
Yeah.
I love that, man. So if our mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry, how have you personally transformed? Who are you today versus the man you were when you got started?
Yeah, listen, I keep using the analogy of like the pirate ship. And, I think even when I first opened Forge, I was still kind of like the drunken pirate, kind of maybe I was in charge of, the lookout from up top. And, now I'm more of the seasoned, captain, making sure that, the ship is sailing the right way, and understanding that I'm responsible for everybody that's on the ship.
I love that. And this is the last question before we officially wrap up, and it's a doozy, so keep your ears open. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure. With the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be? I already know one of them.
Well, follow your gut.
1.
Again, take the word respect and just fill in the blank. Like, it doesn't matter what it is,
And 3.
If you're going to be in this business, or if you're going to be a restaurant owner, make sure you love it. Because if you like it, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you think it's cool, don't do it. If you think it's fun, like, don't do it. Like, you have to absolutely love being in the restaurant business.
This has been a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much. You were a great guest. I really enjoy speaking with you. I'm trying to make Restaurant Unstoppable's North Star this next question, which is, who do you respect and admire? Somebody that you knew if they were a guest on this show, they would offer a perspective, knowledge, wisdom. Like, you would absolutely tune into those to that episode, or those episodes if you have more than one person.
I was about to say, so I've done this this like fun event here a couple times called Playing with Fire, and I got to meet some people that I've always been a fan of, but never like got to like be around close and personal. And a couple of them, one was Wiley Dufresne. I don't know if you've done anything with Wiley, but like, you know, he's just like a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he just opened a pizza place of all things, and he's like, you know, he was known for like bringing molecular gastronomy to New York, and now he's, you know, doing some of the best pizza in New York. Like, he's just such a cool
What's the name of his pizza place?
Stretch.
And
then kind of on the opposite spectrum, you know, was Dave Pasternak. I don't know if you're familiar with Esca. It's not open anymore.
Super familiar.
So he's like the fish whisperer.
Okay.
He had a seafood restaurant called Esca for years. It closed during COVID. But you want to talk about somebody that knows fish. I mean, it was just like it made me feel like embarrassed that I'm a chef because of the knowledge that he had about salmon alone. You know what I mean? It was just God.
Dude, chefs can be very humbling individuals if you start talking about food, man. But Dave, look out. Wiley, look out. I'm coming after you. Anybody else? That I'm not cutting you short?
I mean, it could be 100 people. You know, but like those are just kind of fresh on my mind because we just did this Playing with Fire thing, and you know, honestly, man, if you want to do an old school one, like, you know, my dad could tell you stories that, you know, you wouldn't believe of what they had to go through in the 80s to get, you know, farm fresh food in the restaurant.
I'd love to make that
like
happen.
You really wouldn't believe it. Like, you know, it's right now, you know, I can take you to Whole Foods, we can go get something.
Yeah.
Back then, you know, they had a car that they had to go drive to the airport to like get, you know, asparagus from Michigan. Like, it was like, it's crazy to wrap your head around.
So that's Wiley Dufresne, Dave Pasternak, and Larry Forgione. Look out, I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you guys on the show. And how can we connect with you if we're just inspired by you and we enjoyed listening to your conversation? Maybe we want to come work for you and, you know, learn from you. What's the best way to connect?
I mean, just go to the website. You know, it's Jesus, I don't even know. I think it's respecthospitality.com.
I
I don't even know if that's up yet, but you know,
just look up Respect Hospitality.
yeah,
We'll have a link in the
check
show
out the
notes.
restaurant's website. There's a link there for you know, careers. You know, but we're always looking for great, hungry people, like I said, that love the restaurant business.
Yeah, and this is episode 1043. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/1043 for a summary of today's discussion, a link to any tools or services recommended on the show, and how to connect. We'll try to get the most recent website over there for you guys. And this is where I say thank you so much, Mark. There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.